everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comicsly Podcast, the official podcast of Comicsly.com. My name is Joseph, and this is episode number 27. On the show today, Angela and I are going to be finishing a discussion that we started a couple weeks ago, where we watched the first half of Itaewon Class, the K-drama on Netflix. Today, we're going to be talking about the whole show, focusing on the last half of the season, episodes 9 through 16, after we talked about episodes 1 through 8 a couple weeks ago. So we can kind of talk about the show in totality, what sort of worked, what it set up in the first half of the season and carried through on, what it didn't carry through on, and kind of what the show was as a whole. This was the first K-drama that I've ever watched, and one that Angela had seen. She knows a lot more about K-dramas than I do, and thought would be a good intro. And I think she wasn't wrong. It was very entertaining. It's a different sort of pace and type of TV than I'm used to. So it was really fun to watch and then get the chance to sort of talk about this and break it all down with her. So hope you all enjoy listening to that. Our conversation about the second half of Itaewon Class episodes 9 through 16 will be coming up after this short break. Okay, so you started taking notes. So you rewatched those last 8 episodes?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
I wish I didn't do that.
That's the second time you've seen them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you say you wish you hadn't seen that?
'Cause I feel like I can't stand it as much now.
Did you rewatch the first 8 episodes, or were you going off memory for those?
Off of memory.
Okay. And you were like, so you were pretty positive at that point, like, because you're remembering the show, you'd seen it the one time, and you felt pretty positive about at least that part of the show, or the show as a whole at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you started taking notes, and you just stopped because it's just a lot of TV, or because you just didn't want to or anymore? It felt like it
I
didn't
feel like I
matter.
was looking at it with a much more critical eye.
Just because we were doing the
And also
podcast?
just because I was like watching it again, so the novelty of like, wow, new story kind of
Okay.
wore off, you know?
Yeah.
But also I kind of just think the second half, especially like when like there's like time jumps, is just like not as interesting.
Yeah. Is is there just that one near the end, or is there another one earlier?
I think there's another one. It's not a very large one. It's just basically enough to show that like over time, Dan Bomb got popular.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's the really big one where they're like all old.
They're all old. I think the only way you know they're old, though, is
Julie So has long hair.
yeah, I think that's the only way I could really tell, is like she doesn't have the short bob with the dyed blonde ends.
I think she
right?
looked better with the short hair too.
I kind of liked her old look.
I don't know. It just looked more like what I was used to.
I think she definitely looked older with the like longer hair, right? Which I think goes to a little bit towards the point when Park Se-ri stops seeing her as a little kid at some point, right? That's kind of an important part of the show. But I don't know, where do you want to start? Like, because I was in a similar position where I was taking notes. I think like 8, 9, 10, 11 I probably, or 9, 10, 11 I probably didn't. But then like I was like, okay, 12, 13, 14 I should. And then kind of like end of 14, 15, 16, I was like, I guess I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what changed for me. I want to say like it felt a little predictable, but I don't even think like that's it. I don't know. Do you have an idea of what changed for you watching it a second time?
I feel like it got a little bit like, what are like the big things that happened?
Okay, that's a good place to start. So end of 8, beginning of 9 is when the thing happens where Joey so end of 8, I think Don Bomb, the pub, right? again, I guess we should just say we're talking about Itaewon Class. We're talking about the last we've talked about season or episodes 1 through 8. Now we're talking about episodes 1 through 9. Broadly, it's a show about revenge and a guy who starts like a restaurant to try to get revenge on this person who is responsible for and then covered up the death of his father. And at the end of episode 8, Don Bomb they're like, I don't know if it's like accurate to say they're kind of on a down, but like they are not, they've been like up and down. And at the end of episode, they're in kind of a rocky place. And it looks like the main character, Park Serori, who had this plan, right? He's the guy whose father was killed and that was covered up. He has this like, I forget. I was trying to think back in the first episode and I didn't go look, right? Remember when he says to someone in the first episode, I have like was it like, I feel like it was
10-year
like
plan or
was it?
15-year plan.
Yeah, I was like, I thought, okay, I was trying to remember what number of years it was because it was like very specific. And I don't
I have a
know
16.25-year plan.
um, I assume they like, if you checked the timeline of this show, it works out because otherwise they would be stupid to say such a specific number of years. But they're at a difficult point at the end of episode 8, right? Halfway through the season, Don Bomb's kind of in a difficult place and it looks like he won't be able to like create the pub that he wants or the type of business that he wants. And Jangako, who's the guy who he's trying to get revenge on, runs this business, this like restaurant business called Jangako. And it looks like they're kind of going to get away with it. But then Joiso, I think this is episode 9. I forget if it's 9 or 10. Joiso talks to the owner of Jangako, talks to his son, who is the person who actually killed Park Seroi's dad. He hit him with his car, killed his dad, and then, there was a cover up between the owner of Jangako, whose name is Dahae, and his son, who is Gunwoon. And it looks like they'll get away with that cover up, but then Joiso talks to Gunwoon, gets him to admit, while she's secretly recording him, that he killed Park Seroi's dad.
Yeah.
And he sort of is going to like attack her. She throws coffee in his face, runs out into the street. He's still like chasing her. And then I'm pretty sure there's a confrontation in the street between him and Park Seroi. It's all caught on camera. I think there's a thing where he like grabs a wad of money out of his pocket and like throws it in the air, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, something stupid.
Something stupid like that happens, right? Because he's very rich and he's very arrogant. Personally, I think he's the best actor on this show. I don't know. Well, we can talk about that, but so he obviously, right, this event is recorded, it goes on social media. Joiso releases these recordings, it becomes a big scandal, and then his dad, the owner of Jangako, right, who's like extremely ruthless, will do anything to prevent the demise or like promote his business, right? Like his business comes above his family, right? In every at every opportunity, right? So he sort of disowns his son, says, I had nothing to do with it. This is all on him. The son goes to jail and sort of disappears until like episode 14 or 15, right? He disappears for a while, which I thought was disappointing. I don't know how you felt about that. In the meantime, Don Bomb's sort of reputation as a pub or a restaurant increases quite a bit. They go on this cooking competition where their chef,
Mahini.
Mahuyani,
We should talk about that for a second.
about her whole arc.
Well, since we're here.
Yeah, so Mahuyani, yeah, she does very well in the cooking show, and then sort of the end of that arc, she ends up winning the cooking show, but it comes out right before the final episode that she has transitioned. And it's a big scandal that was leaked by someone from Jangako.
It
We'll talk about
was.
who that was. It
Oh,
was
are we waiting?
yeah, it was because I think that sort of flip. We'll talk about who did it because I think that flip is kind of like gets at a few of my issues with it maybe. But let's talk about Mahyuni. So yeah, she's a trans character. She's in the beginning of the show she hasn't fully transitioned. By the end of the show she has fully transitioned, but it's still it's a big scandal. Her most of her coworkers are okay with it. Soon Kwan
Mhm.
is not okay with it, right? Is that fair to say?
He's like he's very uncomfortable with it, so he's not really being super supportive. He's like kind of making it awkward.
Which is weird because the show often puts those two together.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Like ships them, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely think it ships them, right? I think there's always that potential, but I think he's often the source of comedy on the show, right? Because he's kind of this. He's not dumb, but he's just sort of. I don't know. He's like awkward. Is awkward the right
Yeah.
word, or is it something else? He he's a little bit awkward. He gets things like a few seconds after everyone
Mhm.
else, and I don't think it's ever like I don't think the show's ever making fun of him or like calling him an idiot, but he is a source of like slightly more like physical comedy and just comedy in general for the whole show. And he's often paired with Mahioni, and even though he is uncomfortable with her identity as a trans woman. I don't know. I remember we talked about this a bit in that first episode, and I think my worry was that it was going to be a bit of a tokenistic thing where this show is like it has a trans character for the sake of having a trans character more than like being really interested in who she is as a person. And I don't know if they ever really go beyond
Mhm.
that. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, I see that. I guess for me, just because it's like I've seen so many K-dramas, I didn't really expect them to go beyond that just because it's like that's just not really what these like I think that like it's kind of just to have a trans character in the K-drama, I feel like was a big deal, and I think that I wasn't expecting anything like super like outstanding, I guess. But yeah, I don't think that they like went took it as far like they didn't I see what you're saying.
I mean, I don't even know if it's like taking it. I don't even know if it needed to be like discussed more.
Or, like, not discussed, but, like, they could've yeah. I also feel like it may have been harder to, like she wasn't really, like, a main character to start with, or, like, she was, but she was, like,
Hmm.
part of the group, but, like, I
Yeah.
feel like the side characters really only get their one thing, like, Ma Hyuni with, like, her being transgender, and then, like, Kim Tony with, like, his, like, half Korean-ness and stuff. Like, they
Hmm.
only really get one thing
Yeah.
without so much room to, like, go beyond that.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point. I don't think the show is like disrespectful of her, but like each character gets their one thing, right? So except for like our main characters, right? So Park Sae gets to be like complicated,
Mhm.
right? Joiso gets to be like pretty complicated. Usua, do you think Usua is one of the main characters, or do you think she falls into that more one-dimensional category?
I mean, I don't really like her, so I feel like she's one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely think that her arc is less interesting than, Gunwoo's arc. Like, Gunwoo gets more than her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess we should say so, right? So Park Sae main character, he's started this pub. Joe Iso, a person that he runs into during the first half of the season, who he recognizes has a really good. She's really smart, but sort of needs, potentially a little bit of direction. And the show actually opens with her talking to a therapist, which I think we'll circle back around. It talks to her. It opens with Joey so talking to a therapist about how she doesn't see the point of being alive because it's like boring and she doesn't find it interesting. And then Usua is this person that Park Seoi went to school with and is like she never really goes out of his life, but is sort of this like she works for Jangako, so they have this sort of complicated thing, and he's kind of waiting for her, but she's not always waiting for him, so they have this complicated thing. But I think, yeah, so she maybe falls into that one little bit of a like one dimensional thing. Kim Tony definitely does. Ma Hyuni does. Sun Kwan, who we talked about, does, who is someone that Park Suri met when he did a short period of time in prison for punching someone in the face. And just to wrap up the Ma Hyuni thing, I think again, I don't think the show is like ever disrespectful to her or her identity, but I think it feels a little bit worse when you have her and Kim Tony, who like they have their arc, they have their one thing, and as soon as that's over, they're just kind of like dropped,
Yeah.
right? As soon as her like bit of like conflict where there's a scandal about her being trans on the cooking show, right? Park Sero-e sort of supports her and is like, you do what you want to do, and like, you know, you don't have to prove anything to them, right? I know who you are, your friends know who you are, and that's the only thing that matters, right? Is like very supportive. It's a moment for the show to represent what a great guy he
Right.
is, right? Because the show loves doing that.
And then Joey So also has like a little moment with her with that poem.
I was okay. So do you want to set that up a little bit? Because I actually had some questions about that. I forgot about that, but now that you mentioned, I had a few questions about that.
I can't remember if it was before. I think it was after Park Seo comes talks to Hyunee.
It's after,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's the final episode of this cooking competition, which sort of, if they're able to win, it very much legitimizes them and is going to get them a lot of financial interest, so that they are able to turn their pub into a restaurant franchise. And so Park Seo-wi talks to her, is very supportive about like, we know who you are, you know who you are, and it doesn't matter what they think that you are.
Mhm.
And then, you know, kind of leaves a decision what to do up to her, even though she's representing his pub. And then she talks to Joe Iso on the phone, and then yeah, you can take it from there.
And she basically does like a whole poem thing. I have
Yeah.
it. It's like she's like they make it so that Iso seems like the person who like kind of like made Hyunee be like, "Oh yeah, I can do this." And then she says this
Yeah.
poem, "I'm a rock, go ahead, steer me, I won't budge because I'm a rock, I'm a solid rock, go ahead, leave me in darkness, I'm a rock that will shine all alone, I don't break ash nor decay as I go against nature's way, I survive, I'm diamond." To me, it felt a little bit cheesy.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I had a different word. What do you mean by
Or like it
cheesy?
felt like a little bit forced. Like
Mm.
I guess I don't understand. Like I was like, was Juice doing that to get her to compete?
Okay, that's okay. That was my question. I was like, did Joe? My question was like, was that
Mm.
manipulative? Because
Like
I don't know, right?
I
Yeah.
feel like the show wants to think it's not because the
Okay.
show like we're supposed to like her. I don't think
We're supposed to like who? We're supposed to
both
like
of them,
who?
Yanni and
Both of them. Yeah.
Miso.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so no, I don't think that it was like intended to make you think, oh, she just did that to get that, but it kind of felt like that.
Okay. 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 I was like, am I totally off? Like, does this feel a little bit manipulative? Because not that Joe Iso is like, I like her a lot as a character. I think she's more interest. Well, I don't know. Maybe by the ending she's not, but she starts out more interesting than Park Seo-wi. But she, and I guess I should have some like evidence for this, right? But she is constantly, in the same way that the owner of Jangako, Dehae, is about the bottom line and about the best interest of his business. Like Joiso is pretty focused on promoting Don Bomb Pub, right? Like that's her focus. And I guess I think you're probably right. The show doesn't want you to think that, but just because of who she is, I think that enters in your mind a little
Mhm.
bit. Like, did she do that because she knows it's better for the restaurant if Mahyuni goes through with this and doesn't pull out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But like, well, this brings up one other thing I just want to talk about. Like, I was thinking, especially during that cooking competition, right? I mean, and this maybe gets to kind of like what is this show really about? But there's a couple times in episodes 1 through 8, right, when they're like Park Seo-wi's dad has this sort of special dish, right? It's the soft tofu
Which
stew,
is
right?
super good in real life.
Oh, I've never had. Is
It's
it good?
basically it's kind of remember when I got that like army stew on New Year's Eve? It kind of tastes like that, just with but only with tofu. It was like the red soup with like
Oh,
the
from the
yeah.
restaurant. Okay, got it. Okay, okay, yeah, that soup was really good. Okay, that's good. I'll have to get that next time I
Mhm.
have the opportunity. But
When you come here.
there's a oh, is there a place that sells it?
Yeah,
Do you
there's
know
a
a
Korean
place?
place here.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely do that. But there's a couple moments in episodes 1 through 8, right? His dad sort of, there's like some chopping and some cooking, and they have this nice meal. And then when they're developing some recipes, because initially their food's like pretty bad, and then they figure out like, oh, Park City can cook a little bit, and Hyuni can cook a little bit. And I don't know about you, I felt that was lacking a little bit in these last couple of episodes, and I feel like the cooking show is really a missed opportunity to
Show like cooking.
yeah, to show some like good cooking, because I think it shows up right at the end. There's a scene between a couple of characters where they have a meal together, and the food is like kind of important, right? The way that the food is shown to be kind of important in that moment. But that's the only time, and I was like, I guess I wanted a little bit more of that, right? Just because I don't know, it is a cooking competition, and the idea is that like Don Bomb has really good
Yeah.
food compared to Jangako, which is maybe like used to have good food, but now it's pretty like boring just because they've gotten so big and they have to right at the thing where like a restaurant gets so big and all of the different restaurants have to be able to reproduce that same meal. So it's like has to be really simple. I don't know. Did you feel that at all? Is that something you thought
Yeah, I
about?
think as the show went on, it kind of I think it would have been cool if there were like lots of like cooking scenes or like more like
Yeah.
food stuff. Just because like I don't know, like I haven't had a lot of Korean food, but like it always looks so good. I don't know if it's just because
Hmm.
like red and it looks spicy, but I feel
Yeah.
like it went more focused on like the business than the food.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's really well said. Okay, so that's Ma Hyuni. And again, she's in other
She's
episodes,
like there, yeah.
that when yeah, she's there. She's absolutely there, but like is not important. I would say at all
Yeah.
after the episode where they win the cooking competition. Do you want to keep like recapping, or do you want to kind of switch to Kim Tony
Let's
at
just
that point, who
talk
has a
about him,
sim
yeah.
like yeah, so he is introduced like is he like 6 or 7? It's like pretty late in the first half of the
Yeah.
season. He walks into the pub because they're looking to hire people. Instantly they think, because he's a black character, I think he's probably the only black character. He's the only black character that speaks. He might be the only black character we really see in the whole
Mhm.
show. They assume that he doesn't know Korean, that he's an American, and he sort of shocks them all by speaking to them in Korean and is like, I'm Korean, but no one believes him. And so at the end of episode 8, he's told them at some point, right? Is it a Korean? He has a Korean father, right? And an American mother.
Yeah, or
I
something
think
like
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, Korean father.
And who he never knew or doesn't know and is looking, he's explicitly looking for this person. And so that search is I'm just thinking about how that search goes again and like again, right? Because he's still searching for him, and it's kind of on the back burner for a little bit, and then I forget why, but suddenly Park Sero-yi makes posters looking, because he has a picture of his father and he makes posters like, have you seen this person, call this number. But I forget what made him do that. Now I forget what came before that, because it couldn't be totally out of the blue. But do you remember at all? I don't. Do you remember why he did that?
Uh, no.
I don't. Yeah, I don't remember the reason, but for whatever reason, you remember him. He makes the posters
Yeah.
and puts them up around town, looking for a picture of Kim Tony's dad. Right, they're trying to look for Kim Tony's dad. Right, I think the police come or someone comes and is like, you can't post these anymore, because Kim Tony didn't know that he did this, but they come and they say you can't do this anymore, and then they like, it's like, oh, Park City did this really nice thing for his employee because he really cares about them. He's a great guy. So so they're looking, that's going on in the background, and then there's in the neighborhood that Dom Bomb Pub is in the neighborhood, there's this old woman who kind of, she's not the neighborhood watch, but she kind of just is like around. She knows everything that's going on. She's very like, she's been to Dom Bomb. She knows everyone there. She also owns a few properties in the neighborhood. Well, we think she owns a few properties
It's like a
in the
loan shark
neighborhood,
kind
and
of.
Do you think we get that sense in the first half of the season, or do we think that she's just kind of an old woman who like lends people money occasionally and is like very crotchety? Do we
Looking
see
back, I'm like, I can
do
see
we
it, but I don't think I caught that.
Yeah, I don't know if we saw that in the first couple of episodes, but definitely in the second half, right? There's a thing she goes to a guy demanding he pay her back. He doesn't have the money and she's extremely mean to him because she thinks he spent it on alcohol instead of spending it on his kids. And just like takes the money that he has from him, like which isn't enough to pay off his debts, but just takes the money he has. He sort of chases after her and kind of tries to grab it from her. She falls down the hill that they're on and ends up in the hospital. And then all the people from Donbon Pub, right? So Park Seri, Joiso, Kim Tony, Mahyuni, they all end up at the hospital because they're worried about her because she is like a member of their neighborhood. And then I forget exactly how it comes out, but I think Kim Tony is telling her that she should be nicer to people. She kind of like, he like softens her heart, and then eventually it comes out that she is his grandmother, that his dad was her son, right? Do I have that
Yeah, and then
correct?
he's like dead, right?
Yeah. Yes, the dad is dead. Yeah. But he has found a family member, right? And so yeah, well, okay. I want to jump back to the thing you said about the loan shark, right? Because I was just looking at this vulture piece, which is actually really short. It's only 4 paragraphs, so I was like, okay, they weren't like really reviewing the show. They were like, maybe you should watch this show. It's on Netflix, and it's like, okay. But they mentioned like class struggle, and like you've seen Parasite,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's class
And
struggle.
the
I don't think
character
anything in here was
that
class struggle.
okay, okay, good. I mean, I think there's like, well, so the character who plays Park Seo is in Parasite. There is some overlap there, but like, I think there was an opportunity for, I think there was an opportunity for that to be a part of this show, right? Because right, we talked before how the owner of Jangako, right, even though it seems a little bit weird to be like the owner of a food company, maybe it's just because in the US those people aren't as public, right? But you were saying that is supposed to be like Jeff Bezos, right? Like the guy who owns Jangako is supposed to be like that level of rich and
Mhm.
powerful, right?
Yeah.
And I think they actually do a lot better job with that in the second half of this season. But like, I think they don't sort of, I don't think they ever really, the only moment of class struggle they ever get into at all is this person who probably has an alcoholism problem, like, and this woman like yelling at him about it and not sort of treating him in any sort of way with like respect, right, or offering help in any way, and really only causing more harm, right? It's like that's the only moment. There was a moment there where I was like, oh, maybe this is about to get like really interesting, because it is this idea of like a small business struggling to like grow, and like that's an interesting idea, right? If they have, right, how do larger businesses wield power to sort of squish the growth of anything that might challenge them,
Yeah.
right? Like that could be
But
interesting.
again, that's too deep for a K-drama.
Yeah, this is not that show. This is absolutely not that show, right? Because eventually Don Bon Pub becomes like something that is it's like a restaurant that's all over the world, right? Like, yeah, this isn't that show. There was a moment where they had an opportunity to like maybe have that conversation, but they turned away and went a different direction.
Which, I mean, makes sense because let's just, like, think about the audience that, like, K-dramas are, like, geared towards more. Yeah.
Well, like, I guess I don't know that so much. Can you talk a little bit about
Or it's
that?
like maybe it's not about, like, the people who watch it, I think it's just the reason why people watch K-dramas is, like, the same reason
Okay.
why we rewatch Friends or Community or, like, New
Okay.
Girl, where you just kinda, like,
Okay.
want to, like, feel good and not necessarily,
Yeah.
like, be like, "I learned something."
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good like reminder, right? Because I think the thing that is maybe a little bit confusing, especially for me, or maybe for anyone else who's never watched this, is like it has the like style and sort of it has the style of a show that's more like an HBO show, right? That is more of like a drama and is concerned about these things, but isn't. It has that
But at
style
the
in like
end
a
of the
visual sense, but
day,
maybe.
it turns into a thriller and everyone falls in love and is happy.
Yeah, it does. I was waiting for something. You remember in the first season, that point? I think it's when Park Sidwee actually meets Joey. So right, there's the thing with the moped, and she flips in the air, and he catches her. Do you
Yeah.
remember that? I was waiting for like, is there going to be a moment as ridiculous as that? I don't think we got anything like that in the second half. Yeah, I guess we were talking about Kim Tony, right? So as soon as he figures out this is his grandmother, they have like a few moments together in that episode, which I think is like 13, and then they might have a few moments in it's either like 13, 14, or 12, 13. But like I forget when the time jump is, because he's like basically he shows up once after the time jump. He's basically gone after that,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah, which is like goes back to the like really reinforces this idea that you brought up, which is like side characters have their one thing and that's it. And it feels a lot worse when it's like, oh, you have a character who's trans and you're trying to represent that on screen, but like they're a side character, so they have one thing. You have a character who's black and they're trying to represent how the complexities of that in Korea, but they're a side character, so they get their one thing and then they're off screen as soon as that resolved. It like I don't think the show's politics are shitty. It feels shittier because of that stuff.
Let's talk about the time jump now. Cause like honestly, so much happens, but like the big picture stuff is what we should focus on.
But not that much
Yeah.
happens, right? So I think the Joey so getting
Let me do it. You take too long.
oh yeah, you go
Okay.
ahead. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So basically, after all of that, Joey so has the recording, and then Gunwan is like in trouble. And at the
Hmm.
same time, Gunso, the brother who is with Dambam Pub, is kind of struggling because like he finds out what his family did to Park's and he like he feels bad about it, whatever.
Yeah. Is he a half brother or is he a full
Half
brother?
brother.
Okay, so he's Gunmun's half
Yeah, they have
brother,
the
but
same
they're
dad.
both okay. So Dehae is their dad, but Gunsu has sort of felt isolated because he's the half.
And they treat him kind of like a they treat him kind of like a bastard child, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but so basically, Gunwoo goes to jail and he is like, okay, Gunsu, you're up. And Gunsu, because doesn't make any sense either to me personally, just like because like in real life, why would you think like this? Joey So is like, hey, if you become rich, I'll like you. So then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go over to the competitor and get rich. And like, that was stupid. I mean, like, I get it for the drama, but like, you dummy.
We're supposed to think she's like a little materialistic, right?
Yeah. Or like,
Or
we're
no?
supposed to think like that's like something like she didn't like mean, but she was kind of just playing with his
Oh,
feelings. Like, she
okay.
was never gonna fall. She
Yes.
was just kind of being like
Yes.
a dick.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Because like, yeah, the show very much sets that up in the first half of the season, where she knows he likes her and is very much playing with that throughout those early episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, that happens. Gun for in the meantime is gone, and it looks like Gunsu is the new like next in line. And then I feel like there's like some like weird business politics and like overthrowing, but in the end, it ultimately doesn't really impact anything.
It doesn't
No.
really matter, right? Because Park Chan-wook's a great
Yeah.
guy.
Like
That's the thing, though, right? Because there's going to be investment, and then the investors pull out because one of them was planted by the owner of Jenga Co. But then Park Chan-wook gives this speech about he's gonna like he backs his employees, and he'll figure out a way to like insure his investors' money. And then he doesn't know what he's gonna do, but then something comes through at the last minute because he's a great guy. That's why. So it ends up not mattering. Yeah.
and like basically time skip
Hmm. How long is that? I forget.
like 10 years, maybe 5 years.
It's a lot it's long, yeah.
Basically, Downbound Pub and like the whole company, which is now called Itaewon Class, is like like an
Mhm.
actual, like, pretty much almost at the same level as Jangako, which at the same time I
Mhm.
think is maybe declining a little bit. And then, it's still just like the same like issues where like Jang Dae is like, "Hey, I'm gonna get you," and Park Seo is like, "I'm gonna get revenge," and Joey says like, "Love me," and Usua is like, "Hey, I'm also here." I don't know.
Well,
I
I
feel
think
like I'll
that
just
kind
like
of
skip to the end if I keep talking. Is there anything else that like anything
well,
important to happen?
I mean, we can talk about sort of the business
I'm
stuff
more
about it, but
interested
I
in
don't
talking about
yeah,
like the relationship aspects.
the
I feel like that's
relationship
where
yeah,
there's
as
like
was
more
say
interesting stuff, like the love
oh, yeah.
triangle. Yeah.
So, do you wanna wrap up the business stuff and we'll talk about the relationship stuff? Because
They're
like
still basically like at odds. And then I don't know, spoiler alert, Park Seori's company kind of takes over Jang Cub's company
yeah,
because Jang
there's
Dae is like dying.
yeah. He's
Oh yeah, and then Goon Woon
diagnosed
gets out of jail and is like crazy.
yeah, oh gosh. Okay. So there's a thing in the first season, Park Sedui was in class with Gunwon. Gunwon was bullying a student, so Park Sedui stood up to him. I think he hit him in the face. So Park Sedui had to go in front of Gunwon's dad, Dahae, the owner of Jangako, and apologize. And he said, "I won't kneel because I didn't do anything wrong. Your son was being a bully." And
Yeah, yeah.
so that sort of sets the conflict that's episode 1. That's going to set the conflict for the next
Yeah,
16
because
episodes.
like Jang Dae-hee and like then eventually Park Se-ri both have like this someone needs to get on their knees and beg, which like is just like it feels like I get it, but like it's so stupid. And
By the end, it's so
yeah.
dumb. So he's like, I won't kneel because I didn't do anything wrong, right? He's a
Mhm.
teenager. And there's this whole thing about how right? And then sort of after that, there's the thing with his dad, right? So there's like episode 1 gives us all these reasons for him to hate John Gakko and the owner Dahae. And he has this thing about how he won't kneel, right? He won't ever like subjugate himself because he's a better person, right? But
And okay, well
towards the
quickly
end,
for the record,
yeah.
I don't want to be disrespectful to like Korean culture because like I do know that like kneeling is like very important. So like it's probably means something
Mhm.
different. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but like they really leaned into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that yeah, that's actually I think important to say,
Mhm,
right? I think we are coming at it from like a lens where it seems a little bit ridiculous. I think I do get the idea of not wanting to like say you're wrong, but like the physical act feels a little bit it feels a little bit weird to have that all of that importance around it. But yeah, again, we're coming at it with a Western lens. But there is a moment towards the end of the show where Park Seo-doi is forced for the benefit of his employees, right? For the benefit of his company and his employees, he is forced to kneel in front of Dahae,
mhm.
right? But like he is able to do it in a way that he specifically does it because oh God, this is so complicated. He specifically does it because Goonwoon is out of prison and has kidnapped Joiso because he knows Joiso is like really the brains behind Dom
Yeah.
Bomb. So he kidnaps Joiso. Her life is in danger. So Park Seo-doi goes to Dahae and is like, you can contact your son and you can have him tell you where Joiso is so I can go and find her and save her life. And he's like, I will do that if you kneel. So he does that, right? So he does it for Joiso. Not for his company. He does it for Joiso because his feelings towards her are starting to change, even though like he should have figured that out a long time ago or whatever. But we're going to talk about the relationship stuff because that's more interesting. But so he's forced to kneel, but like still is able to maintain his integrity, I
Mhm.
think, very much. And then there is a point at the end where Dahae is forced to kneel before Park Seo-doi because Park Seo-doi is going to take over his company. He's going to be able
Yeah.
to buy enough stock shares to
And like
effectively
that was
control it.
supposed to be like a really big thing, right? Because
Hmm.
like the significance of like him kneeling to Serui and then Serui was like, nah.
Yeah, they shoot that in a very interesting way where like because in that moment Park Seo-doi is sitting at a table and Dehei is actually like to the side of him. So there's this weird depth of focus where like he's not kneeling in front of Park Seto-ui, he's kneeling like to his side, like in his presence, but like very much to his side. But then Park Seto-ui kind of shits on his life and is like, "Nope, you're
Yeah.
fucked." um, which is fun, right? So the business stuff turns out good for Park Seto-ui and Dambam and everything. You brought up Gunwoon and like yeah, Gunwoon gets out of prison, but like I don't think he's as interesting of a character as he was in the first half of this
'Cause now
season.
he's just kind of like like desperate and sad.
Yeah. I think he was always a little bit desperate, but like now he's like full asshole. Whereas like I think in the first half of the season, you always got the sense that
He
like
could change or
he
something.
could, yes, he could be an okay person, but like he's in a situation that like requires him to be the worst version of himself or
Mhm.
something. Um, and I don't know about you. I think he's maybe the best. I think just from the first half of the show, he's maybe the best actor. I think he's doing some. I think there's like he's giving us the most complexity of anyone. But again, he disappears mostly in the second half, but like I really liked him in the first half, and I think yeah, I don't think anyone like went beyond him for me. I don't know about you, but the main part is he gets out of prison, he kidnaps Joey so and like now he's really just like a horrible person. Whereas before it was always like maybe he's bad, maybe he's good. But anyways, Park Soye kneels, he finds Joey so everything's fine. I don't know. Do you have anything more to say about that, or do you just want to get to the relationship stuff? Because I do. Okay, so relationship stuff.
Should we talk about the love triangle?
Yeah. You want to set that up?
So Park Siri meets Usua in high school and immediately falls
Mm-hmm.
in love with her. Usua is kind of indifferent. I get the feeling that she doesn't really care. She's kind of just happy that someone likes, like, is interested. Like, I don't know. She's just like meh. Um, and they kind of reconnect after Seroy gets out of prison. He still likes her, but it's always this thing where she's just like, I only like rich guys, or I can't. And she
Yeah.
works for Janga Ko, and she's like, I can't. This is my stability, like whatever, blah blah blah. And
I
Seroy's like, I'll do anything for you. I'll become rich. I'll like make it so you work for me instead. And she's just like, okay. And
I think there's a little bit of that class thing there, right? Because I think she's actually maybe on like a scholarship or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
and the job at Jangako offers her financial stability, so she feels that
Yeah, it's
pressure
definitely
between
a bit
like
like more complicated than just her being like,
the show doesn't go into that at all. Like that's dropped like immediately, but initially there is like a
yeah.
conversation.
But then Joey So, on the other hand, is kind of like the opposite of her. Joey So is more willing to like do whatever it takes to make Eroe successful and to make his company successful. Like she's not really doing it for her. She likes him too, yeah. But she's like kind of to like another extreme of like I feel like Sua is more like you do things for me, but Joey So is like I'm
Mhm.
gonna do
Mhm.
things for you. And for some reason, Seirui like really like hangs on to like his crush on Suwa for like a really, really long time. And that like is annoying to Yusu and like Suwa. Also, like I don't like Suwa because like I feel like she's kind of like Yiso with Gunsu. Because like
Mhm. Mhm.
she knows that he likes her, and like instead of just being straight, we're like, hey man, like I'm not gonna this isn't gonna happen. I don't even know if she knows that it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen, but it feels like it kind of I don't know, that's why like so in episode 13 when Iso and Sua like have a conversation in like the coffee shop, and Isu kind of calls her out on being like, "Hey, like you were pretty selfish, and like you said that, and like everything that you did about like making Seirui feel like he needed to become rich for him to like get Suwa, and like Suwa not really doing anything to like defend him. Really, like she could
Mhm.
have eventually she could have like quit working for Jungkook. She could have like made some hard decisions and like actually like help Seirui, but she didn't.
So yeah, I okay. I agree with like everything you said. I have two questions about what the show wants us to think. Because at the end of the show, right, she collects some evidence about like how Jangako has sort of they've had like slush funds, and I actually don't know what that means in a business
Me
sense,
neither.
but they say the word slush funds. But they've had some like illegal business practices, and she's been collecting this evidence over. I think we're supposed to think it's a long time, or at least a couple
Mhm.
years. And so that she's kind of, and there is even a conversation between her and the owner of Jangako, Dehei. There is a conversation between them where he's like, I feel like you've always slightly resented, like you've worked here and you've done good work, but you've always slightly resented
Mhm.
it. And do you think like, again, it's like, it's not fair of the show to put that in the last episode and like have us reevaluate literally everything we've seen her do? Because you're right, she could have quit at some point. She would have earned enough money to like have quit and like gone to another job or done something else. Like she was a successful executive at a very, 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 very well-known company, right? Like she could have gone and done something
Yeah.
else. Does the show want us to think that like she was always working towards like bringing down Jangako, so she was always on Park Seto-i's side? Or is that just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like you think it wants us to think that?
Mm, I don't know, maybe, like, kind of, like, as, like, a sort of mini, like, redemption thing for her at the end,
Mm, mhm.
but to me, I guess it just felt like it didn't feel like she was actually doing all of that work all along behind the scenes with the
Yeah.
intention of actually
Yeah.
doing that. I feel like she
Yeah.
was saving that in case things ever went south. And then, like, I feel like if Down Bum Bum hadn't been so successful and hadn't actually like grown to be like a strong competitor for Jangako, then she wouldn't have like stuck her neck out, you know? Like
Mhm.
she only
Mhm.
helped when it became like when she didn't have to worry about her own position.
Mhm. Okay, so it was more okay. Yeah. I agree with you, right? Where like I think it comes too late
Mhm.
in the show and there's literally no other evidence. Like, because that would have been interesting if it was like, oh, what's Usoa doing here? Where like,
Mhm.
to sort of build that. Because she has some like conversation, right? When Gunsu sort of makes this switch from Dambam to Jangako, you sort of see him change, right? And I think that change is actually quite interesting, where he becomes, right, because he sort of it brings up this idea of like, oh, maybe like just being in this environment, right? Being in this sort of environment where it's like business or money or capital above everything sort of changes a person, right? And Usoa has some interesting conversations with him, but like this idea of her working against Jangako like literally never comes up until episode 16. And so I think it's unfair. They might have wanted us to like rethink about everything she did, but like
And
that's just not good
they
storytelling.
probably didn't want us to rethink everything to the point where we've been like, "Oh, well, then she and Sero should be together." Because ultimately, whether we like
Oh
it or
no,
not,
absolutely.
Issa and Sero were always endgame, even though after a certain point, I was just like I don't know, at the end when they finally, like, fell in love or whatever, it just seems so forced, and then, like, the ending scene where they're, like, cuddling, like, by a body of
Him
water
and
yeah, at
Joiso.
the end, when they were, like
So what's
I don't know.
let's talk about Joiso, and then let's talk about how it should have ended. So Joiso, right? Like, why is she waiting on this
Yeah.
guy? Like, why? Why is he the guy? Like, I get that he's supposed to be a good guy. Like, I get it. And she hasn't seen that before, and she hasn't seen someone like him, but like he tells her at least twice, right? Am I wrong? Is it twice? I think he tells her twice, like, I don't like
Yeah.
you. And like that's hard. That's hard to hear. I don't know. And she's like,
Nah.
the second time, it's like it's hard, but she's like, it doesn't matter. I love you.
Yeah.
I don't know. How'd you feel about that? That was hard for me for her to be like because I was like, oh, he told her the second time. I think it was the second time. I don't know. I forget, but I think there's a point in the second half in episodes 9 to 16 where he tells her like, I don't like you. and she takes it really, really hard. And I thought there was going to be a turning point in their
Mhm.
relationship. And she was like, no, I still love you. It doesn't matter what you think about me. I love you. And I was like, I don't know if that's
And
realistic.
yeah, it's plus I don't know. And also like the first like half always felt like Seroe was like portrayed to be this like kind of like old wise character, and he's so kind of like the way that she was like
Mm.
pursuing him kind of just seemed like it made her feel very very young. And then for it to
Yes.
them to
Yeah.
finally get together, it just felt like maybe a little bit icky or just a little bit
Yeah.
like
I
I
think,
don't know, like it just feels not authentic, I guess.
yeah. If you I only like sort of noticed this retroactively, but like there's a couple times in the first half, and I think there's like a few times in like episodes like 9, 10, 11, where he like pats her head,
Mhm.
right? In right, she still has her short hair. He like pats her head and is like, "You did it," kind of in like, "You did a good job, kid," right? Very paternalistic, very much like sort of dad child type
Yeah.
thing. And why I think it's like really, it's actually really important that her hair sort of changed when they did that time shift, because I think she feels a little bit older. I think if they had gotten together, it sounds weird to say with her having short hair, but there was something very paternalistic about like that version of their relationship, and I think they try to make her like, just in the way she's like handing him papers and they're like in meetings together, and sort of like the levels, because suddenly in that, when they make that time shift, it's like very business
Mhm.
focused, and the way she's sort of kind of on his level in terms of her job, and she looks, I don't know, and I think that I for me the look feels a little bit important, right? Suddenly it's like, oh, now these are two people who could date and it wouldn't feel weird, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, again, but like I don't know why she would hang around for him. I don't even know if it's like hang around, but just like, he told her no. It's not even that, like, yeah, he just straight up told her no, and like it's not. I guess at least for me, he's not a super compelling like person, or like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like,
Mhm.
does the show make him? The show thinks really highly of him, but like, I don't know if it gives us enough of a reason for Joey so to be like, no, I love you and I will only love you basically forever, even if you say you don't love me. Like, I don't. That's a really high bar to be like to clear. You're right. You have to be like an amazing person, and I don't think the show makes that case, I guess, if we're thinking about it in those types of terms.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So like, I guess what's the idea? What's the like? What should have happened then, right? I guess in the end, him and Joey so end up together. And you mentioned there's an awkward kiss.
Yeah.
There's some cuddling. um, it doesn't feel totally natural between them, even though they are in a relationship. And it feels, I forget, it feels almost like they were in a relationship, and then the first time because I think we see their first kiss,
Yeah.
right? And it feels like that sort of came maybe like a while after their relationship started. I think, I don't know, but yeah,
I
whatever,
don't
whenever you
know
have your first kiss is fine, I guess.
how it should have I don't know how it could have like obviously he's not gonna end up with Sua, like
Yeah. Well, I don't think,
yeah,
I don't think any of them should have ended up together.
right.
I think,
'Cause I feel like
yeah.
throughout the whole thing, it was like if there wasn't enough like I don't know, I just didn't feel like outside of like the fact that they were like trying to like make Dom Bob like good together, like they didn't really like have like a good connection. It felt like they worked well as a
Mhm.
team, but I saw what I
Mhm.
saw. And
Yeah.
so they like if they just kept them as just like really, really good friends, I don't think it would have been very satisfying
Yeah.
either. So I don't know.
There's a point when Jangako is trying to get her to work for them, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, I forget if that's late. I think that's late I forget if it's late in the first half or early in the second half. It must be right in the middle, right? Cuz I think Goon Woon takes that meeting with her where she records him. I think he takes it because he's like, I'm gonna get her to work for
Mhm.
us. I think that's why he's taking that meeting. And like, I don't know, I think speaking to what you just said is literally she would have been good at that job, right? She's a good business person.
Mhm.
She gets how to like do that type of stuff. It literally doesn't matter where she's working, right? Like I don't she would have been good at that if it was Jangako or Dambam or
Mhm.
wherever. Um but like yeah, we're supposed to get the idea that like because Park Sedui like cares about people in a way that she's never seen, like she's so right, it literally changes the way that she thinks about the world, but like it just doesn't feel at all real or natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anyone out like yeah, I don't know if any I don't think any of them should end. Like she shouldn't have ended up with Gun Su, right? That
Mm-mm.
doesn't feel good either. No. Oh, what about the I forget. So there's two characters we literally haven't mentioned. Kim Moon Hoon. There's this woman who's going to invest in Jangako. She's on the board of Jangako. Sorry, she's not going to invest in Jangako. She's going to invest in Dambam. She's on the board of Jangako, but she's going to invest in Dambam because she wants to move up
Yeah.
in the ranks of Jangako. She meets the this is going way back. She meets the policeman who sort of helped Jangako cover up Park Surui's father's
Yep.
death. This policeman feels very guilty about it. We meet him in the second half of the season. He has a young daughter, and he meets uh, Kim Mihun, and they start a relationship. I feel like they could end up together. Does
They
that feel
probably could.
okay?
I
Does
think it's
that
kind
one?
of yeah.
Okay.
That
Okay.
is the only pairing that makes sense to me. That seems like
That's
the
yeah.
most like K-drama couple type thing.
Why that one?
'Cause it's like that like cliche of like hardworking businesswoman and like cute widow dad with like the
Mm.
kid and like
Oh.
yeah. I
Okay.
think they
Yeah,
would make a good
absolutely.
drama, kind of like a nice cute
Yeah.
romance drama.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I got a little bit more of them to be honest. I think she's interesting and I think he's a little bit interesting just because he's the only one really or I guess he's connected to Park Seo-doo's past in an interesting way and he feels very guilty about it. But they don't get a ton of screen time yet, but I think yeah, we can ship them,
Yeah.
I think. I think that one's okay. All right. Anything else, Ange? I think that's most of it, probably.
Nah, I think that's it, yeah.
That's it? Okay. Would you say I guess is that if for people who never watched a K-drama, is this a one like so you told right, this is the first one I've
I
watched.
think
Is
people
this
should watch
still
Crash
a
Landing
starting
on
point?
You first.
Okay. Also on
Also on
Netflix, right?
Netflix.
Okay. All right.
That's the first one that no, it's not the first one that I watched. This I think that one is it's just nice. It
Okay.
doesn't I feel like there's less of like questions about like it doesn't like make you think as much like that something's missing when it comes to like representation or things like that. Like it's just nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Crash Landing on You on Netflix. Watch that instead of Itaewon Class. All right. We're gonna go to our one shots. We'll be back in a second, everyone.
Okay, we are back with our one shot. I'll start. I was talking about this earlier with Joey. Only Murders in the Building with
Mm-hmm.
Dave Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez. I
Yeah.
I kind of turned it on because For like the past like 3 weeks, I've really only been watching Impractical Jokers and Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And when I like watched the first
So your brain is
which and when I
melting.
watched the first episode, I was like, "Oh my god, there's like actual TV out here." Like I was like a whole different level of entertained, and I was like, I gotta
Yeah.
start watching like better things. And so that's what I've been watching. Really, I think it's really. I also think it's funny, because I texted you immediately because it was like podcasting
Yeah.
in New York, and
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
like a
yeah.
really funny scene when there's a crime scene. I don't. Do you listen to true crime podcasts? They're really popular.
I've listened to a few, so I get the
The
like
hype.
if yeah, I get the hype and I also like get the tropes because I understand that this show makes fun of them a
Yeah.
little
Well,
bit. Is
yeah, so
that
there's
yeah?
like a
Okay.
crime there's a murder in the building and these three characters come out and they're like talking and the police officer detective lady's just like, "What fucking podcast have you guys been listening to? You and your
That's
stupid," and
amazing.
like all these true crime podcasts got everyone out here thinking that they're gonna be like a detective or whatever, and then like they go on
Mhm.
to like try to be detectives with a podcast. And also like because it's set in New York City, I think you would also appreciate because like in the opening, it's the. Have you watched any of it yet?
I haven't seen it. I
Okay.
you've talked about it, and then I this sound so weird. I heard on one of my podcasts they started talking about it, and so I was like, I gotta watch this show.
I think the first you should just go watch the first episode real quick because like I think that's like the most like entertaining one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Is it something that we should watch for this, or do you think not? Is it just it's just more entertaining? A podcast?
a podcast about a
Yes.
show
No.
that's about a
Okay.
podcast. No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you know who Steve Martin and Martin Short
I
are? Have you seen
recognize their
them?
names and they look familiar. The skinny
Okay.
guy,
Have you
especially. I don't
seen
know which one is which.
ha have you seen Cheaper by the Dozen?
No.
Okay, because the podcast I was listening to talks about, like, Steve Martin and Martin Short, and, like, they're famous comedians from, like, when our parents were alive, but Cheaper like, I know Steve Martin from, like, Cheaper by the Dozen, like, very, like I guess I shouldn't even try to categorize it. At least in that show, it's, like, pretty broad, like, kind of physical humor because they have 12 kids, right? That's the sort of the whole premise of the show is that he marries a woman, and I think they each have, like, 6 kids. So now they have 12 kids all living in one house,
Steve
and, like,
Martin,
hijinks ensue. This is yeah,
he
Steve Martin
was
is in
in
Cheaper by the
Prince of
Dozen, yeah.
Egypt.
Oh, he was a
He
voice in
was
Prince of
Hotep.
Egypt? Oh, I didn't hadn't I would have never known.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so they're pretty old. How's Selena Gomez? I don't know a ton about her. I guess I know, like, Disney Channel and music. How's
I think she's
she?
been trying to get back into acting. Um, I
Okay.
mean, like, I thought she was, like, good in, like, Fundamentals of Carrie, and that was on Netflix. I feel like
Mhm. That's a Paul Rudd movie,
mhm.
right?
I feel like her
Yeah.
acting, like, her characters, she does, like I feel like I recognize her when she does, like, these, like, snarky, kind of, like, moody type characters that are, like, cool. I don't know. I think
Okay.
just, like, the way, like, she talks or whatever, like, I think it's nice. I mean, I
Right.
like her as, like, a celebrity, so maybe I'm a little bit biased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think she's, like, a pretty because she has, like, a cooking
She has
show or
a
something,
cooking
right? I
show
think
that's
she's, like,
really
a
cool.
pretty
She has, like, a makeup line that I don't have enough money to buy.
Yeah, I was thinking like her celebrity presence, at least as far as I am aware of it, is like isn't annoying
Mm-mm. She
or
seems just
condescending at all.
pretty
So
chill, yeah.
okay, nice, nice. So that's only murders in the
Only
building.
Murders in the Building.
Oh, nice. Okay, is that on Hulu?
Hulu. Episodes come out every
Okay, nice.
Tuesday. You know what show I am really excited for? Yeah,
Oh,
it's not out yet, only 4 episodes,
so it's not.
which is
Oh, okay. I thought it
sucky
was
because
all
it's
out
like,
at
how am I
once.
supposed to
Okay.
binge watch it?
Does it feel like a show that would be better for?
No, I think it makes sense that it, like, comes out it's coming out on a rolling basis because it is, like, a mystery,
Okay.
so there's, like, a cliffhanger
Okay.
and, like, it makes sense. I get it, it's just
Okay.
annoying because
Okay.
I'm Gen Z and I want everything now, apparently.
All right. What were you gonna say before?
Season
There's
3 of You is coming out in October, and I'm very excited. It's on my
oh, they're still
calendar.
making that.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I got told I met someone for I don't know if I told you this story. I met someone for the first time. Is his name in that show Joseph? I think his name in that show is Joseph,
Joe
right?
Goldberg, yeah.
Joe, right? Okay, his name's Joe. But I met someone for the first time and they were watching you and they were like, "Oh, your name's Joe. I'm watching like maybe you're like this person." And then like
That's
a
not a
couple days
compliment,
later
by the
cuz it
way.
was like no, I didn't know. The thing is I didn't know that. I'd
Oh.
never heard of this show and I was like, "Oh, okay, like cool." But then like a couple days late, I forget exactly how they said it, but then they couple days later, right? Because I'm kind of a quiet person, and this was like a conference. It
Mm,
was like a week-long conference I had to go. It was like a training for something,
mm.
and so and like in that sort of situation where like I know I'm there for like 5 days. I'm never gonna see these people again. It's like, of course not. I'm not gonna say anything. Like, no, of course I'm not gonna like get to know anyone. And they came up to me and they're like, you know what? You are kind of like Joe. Like you haven't really like said anything. You just kind of like hang out in the back.
It's really not a
And
compliment.
again, I didn't know what it meant.
You should have been like,
I looked it up later, but I was like,
if that
oh,
ever
great,
happens again,
thanks.
if you don't know what it means, you gotta let them know, or else you might be agreeing
Yeah.
that you're like stalker, murderer person.
They weren't like you are a like a is he I guess he's not a serial killer. Is he a serial killer or is he just a weird
How many
stalker?
people do you have to kill till you're considered a serial killer?
Oh, so he does kill people on that show. I
You're not
wasn't
gonna
sure if he
watch it,
just
are
locks them
you?
in his basement. No, I'm
Yeah,
not
he
gonna watch
kills.
it.
I know at least 2 people, 3 people.
Okay. Okay, he's getting there. I feel like
That's
that's
pretty much
maybe
serial
he's
killer. That's like
y
all it
yeah, I
takes to
think
join the club, right?
yeah, I feel like 3 people is definitely
Yeah.
enough. That felt weird to say, but, like, yeah, maybe I'll take that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like if you're killing multiple people, that's, putting you in the serial killer
I feel like I'm
category.
gonna Google it now.
What does it take? Anyways, well, Angela Googles that. I also have a show on Netflix, which I texted Angela about, not immediately, but my
3 or more
my one
people.
shot for this week is 3 or more. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
then he is. Then he
Yeah.
absolutely is. My show is Reservation Dogs,
Uh,
which is a show on FX on Hulu. Did you watch the first couple episodes,
yeah.
Ange?
Yeah.
It's a show about a 4 Native American teens on a reservation in Oklahoma. It was shot on location on a reservation in Oklahoma and is about their attempts to try to earn enough money to go to California. They want to leave their reservation and, do something else
Mhm.
with their lives. And like it's made by Taika Waititi and Sterling Harjo. I think Sterling Harjo wrote most of it, and then Taika Waititi produced. And it is about what it is like to be an indigenous person living on a reservation in the U.S. and like how that can be funny and sad and frustrating and like all and like just a full experience of that thing, right? Not and sort of aware of the tropes of Native Americans and making fun of them and sort of deconstructing them and yeah, and I think getting it from the perspective of these kids who are just like they're just kids who are worried about the things that kids are in high school, like like earning money or there's like this roving gang that they have like run-ins with that they're trying to like stand up to and they lost a friend recently and they're trying to deal with that and like they have sort of parents who they have struggles with but like really funny like really heartfelt.
I was watching. There's a funny scene that was making me laugh when Cheese was like in the hospital and the old lady thought he was his grandson and he was just like being so awkward. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and but, like, even that, right, that's just, like, a little moment in an episode, right? And I don't know, yeah, I think the show is, like, sort of shot through with all of those, and it is always, like it is, like, willing to deal with hard stuff, but, like, is pretty lighthearted on the whole, and, like, doesn't feel like this, like, I think, like, with some of these shows and even kinda we were talking about, like, Itaewon Class, like, this type of experience isn't something we see on TV a lot, but like it's about that, but it's also just about these people, right? Like it can be about both those things at the same time and not one forgetting about the other. Yeah, I don't know. Have you watched more of it, Ange? Have you? Because that's a show that's also coming out weekly. Are you gonna keep up with it, or you think you'll watch the whole thing?
Maybe. I would have to rewatch the last like little bit because I was getting a little bit
Yeah.
distracted. feel like I don't know, I feel like I should just so I don't, like, keep watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
I mean, if it's Reservation Dogs or Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I think it should definitely be Reservation Dogs. But that's up to
Uh-huh.
you, you know. Live your life. All right, yeah. So Angela's one shot was Only Murders in the Building on Hulu, and Reservation Dogs also. Both of those shows are on Hulu, coming out week by week. So check those out if you're interested with them. Let me pull up my end of the show stuff because that's where we are. You can follow Angela on Instagram at glow.angela and at iJune, IJOONE_. You can follow me on Twitter at Joey Glowacki, JoeyGlowacky. The music you heard in this episode is a lo-fi remix of the song Concerning Hobbits by Patrick Moonbird. You can find their music on Spotify and SoundCloud. Please rate and review this episode on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast listening app. You can also email the show by sending your messages to podcast@comicsly.com. All reviews and messages are greatly appreciated. Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week, and yeah, take it easy. See you next time.